Cheers. So the other day I saw this video about death saves. It was Brendan Lee Mulligan talking with a guest on one of his shows. And on that show, the guest had indicated how he ran death saves. And it was basically that he would have the person roll and then keep it a secret.
Well, I think, when you are rolling death saves, that should be one of the most climactic points of a D&D session. Mm-hmm. But most people consider, okay, we have some time to worry about that. That's why I think, I bring to the table, that death saves should be a private roll between the player and the DM behind a screen.
Probably so that the other players would react as they would actually react. Like if it was a cleric, they would be running over, even though that person may have been succeeding at their death saves. It was a great idea. But why don't characters die at 0 hit points? I find myself in between what people in 5th edition which is that whole whack-a-mole thing where it's like the character goes down, they pop back up because of death saves and or healing word or anything like that. And what old school believe, which is 0 hit points and you're dead, that's it. Being a part of the latter form of old school gaming, I really came in at the beginning of 2nd edition. Actually started playing in 1st, but really came in at 2nd edition. And there's something with that group of people. And Matt Mercer is actually part of that same people group. Very late 80s, early 90s. And it seems like those that grew up in that era are the ones that are stars today. Like Matt Mercer and Brendan Lee. It's like we discovered that role-playing actually meant that you were acting a part. Now, the idea of role-playing from the earlier editions of D&D was really like you were playing the role of a cleric, or you were playing the role of a fighter. But for those kids that were late 80s, early 90s, we took role to mean that we were acting. It's a different frame of reference. And that's why I'm not completely on board with Diet Zero. And I'm definitely not on board with death saves. Because I am part of those kids that created a backstory. And who knows, maybe we were the first iterations of that didn't treat D&D like a board game, but treated it more like we were playing a role. So that's why there was a backstory. And I really think that there is a happy medium here, at least at my table, and you might be able to use it at your table as well. I really didn't have a problem with 2nd edition's solution to this. When you reach 0 hit points, you fall prone and are unconscious. And then your friends have up to 10 rounds to come and save your ass with a potion or some sort of healing spell. It was an optional rule. And actually, let me go get the book and read what it says. I am going through all of this shit. Parrying is an optional rule, which I thought was interesting. Is it in the DMG? Maybe it's not in the player's handbook. That's what 5th edition has done to me. It's in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I think. And this makes sense. That it's actually in the Dungeon Master's Guide as an optional rule. It's not in the Player's Guide. I'm so used to 5th edition giving power to the players that I forgot that Dungeon Masters actually have the fucking power. So, optional rule, hovering at death's door. This is what it says. You may find that your campaign has become particularly deadly. Too many player characters are dying. If this happens, you may want to allow characters to survive for a short period of time, even after their hit points reach or drop below 0, or alcohol. When this rule is in use, a character can remain alive until his hit points reach -10. However, as soon as the character reaches 0 hit points, he falls to the ground unconscious. Thereafter, he automatically loses 1 hit point each round. His survival from this point on depends on the quick thinking of his companions. If they reach the character before his hit points reach -10, and spend at least one round tending to his wounds, staunching the flow of blood, etc., the character does not die immediately. If the only action is to bind his wounds, the injured character no longer loses 1 hit point each round, but neither does he gain any. He remains unconscious and vulnerable to damage from further attacks. If a cure spell or some type is cast upon him, the character is immediately restored to 1 hit point. No more. Further cures do the character no good until he has had at least 1 day of rest. Until such time, he is weak and feeble, unable to fight, and barely able to move. He must stop and rest often, can't cast spells. The shock of near death has wiped them from his mind, and is generally confused and feverish. He is able to move and can hold somewhat disjointed conversations, and that's it. If a heal spell is cast on the character, his hit points are restored as per the spell, and he has full vitality and wits. Any spell he may have known are still wiped from his memory, however. Even this powerful spell does not negate the shock of the experience. So clerics can do divine healing, but wizards cannot heal with the cure spell in 2nd edition. I've heard others say that this was even a weak and feeble attempt and kind of nerfed the game. We used it in our games back in the late 80s and 90s, and it didn't seem like nerfing, not when you played it out like you were acting in a movie. It was actually quite intense in some situations. Even if your character died and then was able to get to a priest and there was a resurrection spell cast and all of that, and they survived a very low percentage of a system shock survival, there was drama. And from an actor's point of view, that was kind of the point. Drama. Drama is good. Drama is fucking great and grand. I've decided to go back to 2nd edition, old school essentials or of the like. I like 2nd edition. It works. But if you're planning on playing with 5th edition, I was having this conversation with my wife the other day, and I explained to her that with death saves, that the death save mechanic, I think it's as it's written within 5e, is basically you're not adding your constitution or anything like that, but you're leaving it to the gods, to fate, to actually decide. And for all intents and purposes, you have a 55% chance of making it out for each roll, which I think ends up being because you have to get 3 successes, or you can get 3 fails and you're dead. But the 3 successes at 55% chance and 3 times to do that is actually a higher percentage. I'm not a math whiz, so I don't know what that percentage is. If you do know, leave it in the comments below so that others might know. But being the person that she is, she said to me, why not just make it 1 roll? And it's a 50-50 chance. So at that point, you flip a coin. In this case, I've got this cool D20 coin. A 1, you're dead. A 20, you still have 1 hit point. This is the only time it happens. If they take damage again, and it's more than that 1 hit point, they are dead. So you flip the coin. A 1, and you're dead. A 20, and you survive. In this case, it's a 20. You still have 1 hit point. This is the only time you can do this. If you get hit again, go down to 0 hit points, you're dead, dead, dead. So you don't take away the death saves mechanic, but you actually just modify it. The gods know, right? Fate knows, correct? And if they know, it's not going to take upwards of 5 rounds to figure out what the gods want to do. No, it's going to take a split second. So your character sustains damage, you go down to 0 or negative of that, and what happens? Flip the coin, heads you live, tails you lose. And that's that. Maybe that'll work for you. If you use this, then let us know in the comments, and otherwise, have a great next game. Cheers.
All right, do this and do that and do this and do that and watch this video.